Starting a business looks exciting. Behind the scenes, it's full of uncertainty, mistakes, and hard decisions. I'm Priti Ruparel. On the Business Blueprint podcast, entrepreneurs share their highs and lows and how they practically applied real business school lessons while building their companies. This is real conversation and practical learning. Welcome to the Business Blueprint podcast.
Hello, everyone. My name is Priti Ruparel, and I want to welcome you all to the Business Blueprint podcast. This is where we learn practical business lessons through real founder journeys. Well, my favorite quote is, "Journey for 1,000 miles begins with a single step." And this is the first episode for the Business Blueprint podcast. We wanted to cover an important aspect on entrepreneurship, that is the product market fit. This is the moment when your business stops from being an idea and starts becoming something that people need. For this episode, we have a very special guest here, Tina Singh, founder and CEO of Bold Helmets. Just to share about Tina, she's also an occupational therapist, digital content creator, and mom of 3. In January 2023, Tina launched the Bold Helmets brand, which has created the first safety-certified multi-sport helmet for Sikh kids who keep their hair in top knots. Tina was named one of the top 25 women of influence in 2024, as well as one of the most inspiring women in Toronto by Streets of Toronto. We're very excited to learn from Tina about her journey. And what I really admire about Tina is that how she's created a company and solving a very unique, overlooked problem for families and children. So let's have a conversation with Tina and learn about her product market fit journey for Bold Helmets. Tina, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the Business Blueprint podcast.
Thank you, Preeti. I'm so excited to be here.
So Tina, let's talk about the problem. There are a few questions I have, noted down to ask you. So how did you first notice that there is a problem, and why did you feel there's a solution that needs to be there to address for this problem?
So this actually goes back many years. So you mentioned that I'm a mom of 3. My oldest son is now 13. So when my oldest son was 3 years old, he was one of those kids who was so quick to learn how to ride a bike. He was riding throughout the house. And me, being an occupational therapist who worked in head and brain injury, I wanted to make sure my kid was wearing a helmet. And I wanted to encourage him to do all those things that I found stressful as a parent, like riding throughout the house, while still encouraging his confidence by making sure he wore the right safety gear. That was when I realized, okay, so this helmet is kind of off a little bit, doesn't fit him very well because he had his hair in a top knot. We tried and it worked for a couple of years, but by the time he reached 5, that helmet no longer fit. So that's when I started having a real concern about there not being a product for him, because I also have 2 other sons younger than him. And so I think it's more, I saw it as a problem because I worked in head and brain injury and I know the importance of helmets, that I realized that this is a problem for my kids specifically.
And what do you think about the personal and cultural experiences that you have that you understood that there's a need for addressing this problem?
So I think my experience, again, a lot of the experience that made me go through with this was my education that made me go through with this, really. But when we think about from a cultural perspective is, sometimes parents like me, and this is something I've learned from them too, they think, oh, they're going to learn how to ride a bike, they're going to grow out of it, right? So I think some of the cultural resistances and stuff like that also informed how I launched my product. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit, but it was just more of that. For me, it's educational culture that came and informed the way I had to do things, right? And so I will also say it wasn't necessarily fully supported by other types of culture, but it was something that for me, in what I knew was important for me raising my kids and for parents like me.
And what I really like, I've checked your website. I also checked your Dragon's Den video as well, Tina, that you created a very customized dome-shaped helmet, which is essential. It's a protective gear that is definitely needed for children from the Sikh community. So kudos. It's a very, as one of the dragons mentioned, cool and innovative product that you created. So let's talk about customer discovery. Usually in business schools, they teach about customer discovery. You should talk to your users when building a product. And sometimes entrepreneurs figure it out on their own. So did you speak to parents, families early on about the idea of Bold Helmets?
So I'm going to be honest, I did not, as I was first making the product because I had my own customer base, which was my own immediate family, right? So my own immediate family were customers of this product. And if I'm really truthful about it, when I started on this journey of making this product, when I signed on that dotted line to, hire that design engineer, I knew that I was making this product for my kids regardless of anyone else needed it. And that may sound foolish to others, but for me, I found it a necessity. I knew other parents have struggled with this because this is something I've seen online or people talking about, that kids are leaving certain sports because of helmets. So I thought, even if my kids are the only ones who need it, I'm okay with that. I didn't really talk to other parents until I had a prototype. When I had a prototype, that's when I went to a lot of kids in my neighborhood. I talked to parents in my neighborhood. Can I try this on you to make sure that it fits? So I had a sample size that was larger than just my own kids.
And were they supportive of your trying out the prototype? Were they skeptical? How was their reaction?
So all the parents I spoke to were actually very positive and they were very excited about it because these are parents that have their kids in various sports and they know that helmets are an issue. And so all the parents that I talked to were very excited. I didn't talk to any parents who felt that there was no need. And maybe that's a limitation in my research, right? That I should have actually gotten other people as well who didn't feel that there was a need and get their feedback on what they thought about it.
No, but this is a very unique product that you have come up with, especially you understood that there is a need and a product that actually understands your culture as well.
Mhm.
So, let's talk about the market size. Did you feel that the market is large enough for tapping opportunities?
So we always feel like the market is not large enough, right? Because it's a very niche product. Again, when I launched this product, I wasn't looking at it like, how are we going to scale this product? It was like, I'm going to launch this, I'm going to solve a problem. That was kind of the goal, right? Not seeing past that. Now, looking past that, yes, we have to look at how big the market is. However, I think when you look at the market beyond just bicycle helmets, that's when the market is very large, actually. So when we talk about, oh, this is for people of the Sikh faith who keep their hair in top knots, there's actually a big population of people who do have long hair that do keep it in top knots, like, our native Canadians. Like, there's many people who fall in this category, right? So it, our community or the Sikh community is not the only community whose needs have been ignored. That's a fact. Shortly after I launched, I got a lot of emails from people whose children wear cochlear implants. And so because of where they rest, they can't wear helmets. And so they have a huge need as well. So yes, the market is niche and maybe someone consider the market's not big enough, but I think the idea is you expand beyond bicycle helmets and maybe at some point you expand beyond custom helmets and you go to including standardized helmets, right? So I think the market is as big as you can make it, if that makes
Uh,
sense.
Absolutely. I remember your husband said in the Dragon's Den, like it is a niche product, but it has an enormous market. And back then you said total addressable market is $42 million. But as you say that there are different target segments can also use this product. Like I'm sure sky's the limit that you can definitely tap opportunities, not only in Canada, but globally as well.
Yes.
So, every time entrepreneurs, before they launch the product, they want their product to be perfect. And the first version of the product is the starting point. So did you first test the prototype before fully manufacturing? You said that you did share it with a few people from your network as well. So what was their reaction in testing the product? Like, are there any feedback that they were able to share with you?
So in testing the prototype, people were able to tell me how it felt. How did it fit? Did it feel generally comfortable? One of the challenges I faced with that, I'd like to share as well, because I feel like it'd be helpful for other people, is when you have a niche product and you're testing it on people who've never worn a helmet before, often there's a lot of feedback about, helmets in general are not usually the most comfortable thing to wear. They feel like you're wearing something, right? So you also want to test with a market who's used to wearing helmets. That's another thing. The biggest feedback that I got from that first prototype is some people just needing a bigger size. So I got very lucky. If you manufacture anything that requires an injection mold, it's very expensive. So even doing a prototype in round one, if you don't get it right, you have to go back again, which is very, very hard. And then for us, you have another added layer of testing as well. So we have safety certification testing has to happen. And if you change the mold, you got to go back and do it again. I didn't change much for my prototype. I will say that our first prototype actually, that's not true. I did change something. Our first prototype had a hole in the foam where the dome was. So the hair would go through it. And of course, as we we went through this and we talked to an actual manufacturer, we realized that if there's a hole in the foam at the top, it's not going to pass safety testing because when they drop an anvil on it, it has to stay secure. And without the foam, it won't. So we did go back and change that design before we went to molding our final product. But when we had our first launch product, or before that, the only thing we did was create a second size because we had some people where this wasn't the right fit, or every kid's head is a different size, right? So we needed a second option.
So you have a small size and you also have a medium size,
Medium
right?
size,
And
that's right.
okay, and like how many prototypes like did you create to come up with the final version of your product?
I would think that prototypes, we had our first one from our design engineer. We had a second one from our manufacturer. I believe it was just two.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
that's still impressive.
very lucky.
And plus going through the certification process. And I believe like you had clarity and, with your background as an occupational therapist, you know that what kind of customized size of helmets that you should be manufacturing. So how did you first feel, the first customer who bought your product? What was your reaction to it?
I had I think, a unique experience to launching the product because I had a whole bunch of media coverage before my product was for sale. So I, in retrospect, should have started my wait list right then or my pre-orders then, but I didn't. Our product wasn't arriving until March. We got lucky and I didn't think when I sent out press releases that I would get media coverage right away, but I did. And so because of that, on my first day of sales, when they open, I think we did $4,000 in sales in the very first day. And I can't even explain the feeling of that. Like, I think it was so surreal. There were so many big things that were happening in that moment that it was crazy. Everything was so quick and it was a whirlwind. So when my product did come in, when it landed at my house, in March, I was sitting there filling like a couple hundred pre-orders, right? Which is like new products don't usually have that. But I think the community really wanted to come out and support. And the early people who bought our product, they came to support and they wanted us to continue the work because they saw the need. So I think it was very validating for me. Like that was the moment where I thought, people aren't just willing to support this on social media or support it just to my face. People are actually willing to put their money where their mouth is, right? They're willing to pay for this product and support the work. And some people purchased the product that didn't even need it. They just wanted to have it and support the work, right? So to me, it was such an unreal feeling. I mean, so incredibly thankful. And I think those early days of success are kind of what kind of what help you through the harder days of sitting there filling orders with your entire family or, dealing with customer service and all those things.
Like you've just, it's like the product market fit moment that you're saying, like you knew this is working, right? Like
Yeah.
what you have come up with a solution, it is working. And I'm sure you resonated, like there's a need for the product. Like what were the signs you believe showed that people really needed this product? Is it like referrals, organic interest, or repeated customers?
When I was almost ready to launch the product, I did go to some trusted people. I went to some trusted people and said, "Look, I'm going to be releasing this thing soon. I wanted to share it with you. It is a labor of love and a passion project, and I've spent a long time because it did take a long time before it actually was ready doing this, and I did it all quietly. Like I never shared any of it until it was ready. And so I went to some trusted people, and when those trusted people reacted so incredibly positively, again, they're my people, so I would expect that they would, but they're also people who would say like, "Are you sure about this?" Right? All those people reacted in such a positive ways, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you've been working on this. Like, I'm really proud of you." That was the moment when I felt like, okay, these are also people who could use my product. So that's the moment where I felt like, okay, I've got it right. Honestly, I didn't know. I really didn't know how it was going to go. When I told those trusted people before launch, they reacted positively. I'm like, okay, this is a good sign. But it wasn't until the media coverage when we had so many parents so appreciative of it that I was like, okay, I think I've nailed this. And when people actually got their product, there were some people, okay, maybe it wasn't the right fit because they needed a bigger size or whatever it was, but we have very few returns actually of our product, right? So people, even if it doesn't fit their kid, they'll buy another one in a medium and gift the size small, right? So people are very supportive. Like our community is very supportive of the work we do.
I mean, you are wearing different hats. You're a
Mm.
mom of three, occupational therapist, you're an entrepreneur. And you were actually, very recently, I got about 4 stages for getting out of your comfort zone. One is courage, You had the courage to address the need of the community. You created validation. There is a momentum you created and impact. So courage, validation, momentum, and impact. I see a lot what you did with bowl helmets and supporting the community. So that's really impressive. Now, the
Thank
hard
you.
part is done. You garnered positive response, but I'm sure there are some different set of challenges, Tina, that you must have faced. What kind of challenges is it related to manufacturing or logistics?
So yeah, launching it and the media coverage feels like the easy part because we got a lot of awareness to our product, right, quickly because we had a lot of media. Um, so that was positive, and that was a little bit easier for me than it usually is for other people. Usually it's a reverse, right? They launch and then it's more about getting awareness. I kind of had the opposite problem. So I got the awareness and that was all good. I think it's the logistics of it, like sitting there filling all those pre-orders for my house because I didn't have a 3PL at that time. Um, so there was that part of it and getting my whole family involved. You know, there was a time where my now 10-year-old said to me, "The helmets are taking over my life," because he felt like that's all we were doing. So I had issues with logistics and figuring out what pieces of the business to give to other people. And I'm happy to give pieces to other people, but it's just knowing how and when the right time is to do that. So that's a struggle that I faced. At this moment, 3 years post, like we're just entering our third year. I think our biggest challenge is keeping the momentum going, raising awareness in other parts of the world, and logistics in other parts of the world. Like many other brands, we decided to implement an Amazon strategy for some of our other countries. So, for example, in the UK, Australia, and in the US, actually, because of the recent tariff challenges that we faced as Canadians, we actually have some products sitting there to be able to reach our customers a little bit more effectively. But managing some of those logistical challenges, managing marketing and awareness post the big, awareness that we had and keeping that momentum going. I think those are some of the challenges that I faced. But other than that, like I say, the biggest hurdle for me at this moment is innovating. We have been working for 3 years on a hockey model of our product, and I'm only now 3 years later really close to starting the molding, but it's such an expensive product to make and it's such an expensive R&D process to go through that I almost have to take my time until I can afford it. So those are some of the challenges I think people don't see from the outside because every few weeks I get emails saying, "Is hockey ready yet? Is hockey ready yet?" And I wish it was, but it's not. So for me, it's some of those challenges. We did go on Dragon's Den, but one of the things, like, the deal didn't work out for us or for the Dragon. It wasn't a good fit, and so we didn't move forward with it. So it means that money and financing is always a challenge within the business. So that, having the money that we need to be able to execute on things faster is probably one of the bigger challenges I'm facing right now.
Well, kudos to you. You have faced so many challenges, but you are moving forward continuously. And that's what important. And you have been an inspiration, especially to me, as well as I'm also getting out of my comfort zone to doing this podcast with you. Now, my favorite section, which I want to talk to you, is about nuggets of wisdom that you can share with our listeners. Can you share how can a founder know they truly have a product market fit?
So I would say if you can identify a single person who can use your product, it's a reason to explore more. That's what I would say. So in my case, I knew the product was for my own kids. I knew to go forward. What I would say to pay more attention to that I admittedly feel like I did not is the size of the market and what you can carry as a new business, right? So sometimes if we're trying to find the product market fit, we have to understand what is this product going to cost to make and what is the addressable market for that product, right? So we also don't want to outprice ourselves out of the market, even if it fits our customer, right? Unless it's an essential item, you got to make sure that you can actually, like, the numbers match. So I know early on it's hard to think about what this product might actually cost, but if you think you've got a product market fit or you think you found a person who can use it, I would survey people around that person. I would survey your entire community, right? And I would do it with an NDA. That's what I say. I would use it to make sure you have legal protection when you do that, outside of your close friends and family, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very important that you, talk to a business lawyer as well. Definitely. This is a very helpful advice you've given. And what are the school of hard knocks, some mistakes that you feel that the early founders should definitely avoid?
Early mistakes. So I think for me, I overestimated how much product I could sell. And I think that's probably true of most people because they're overly ambitious. And I think most founders are overly ambitious. That's just the nature of their personality. So I think it's overestimating. And I also think one of the early mistakes I made as a founder is, and I mentioned this earlier too, is not finding people outside your circle to consult with. Everyone who's around you, more often than not, you're friends with them because most of the time they think like you and they believe in things the way you do. But it's really important to find people outside that circle who can give you a different perspective. And that is something I feel like I missed. When I first launched my product, I launched it as Sikh helmets. And I was proud of the name. Everyone in my circle had no problem with it. Everyone thought it was great. But then when it went out to the public, people had a huge problem with it. It's not because of the product, it was because of the name. And so we pivoted the name, which was actually extremely positive for us. It made a very good change for us. So even though it was very hard and stressful, and I was on vacation with my family in Mexico while it was happening, and I was crying every day, I promise you it was a positive change. It came out very positive. But I learned really quickly from that I can't just ask the people I know and trust around me. I need a wider audience to get this feedback from because my community or my circle thinks like me most of the time for most big picture things. And so we need people outside to help guide us to see how people outside that immediate circle might think about things.
That's true. Like that constructive feedback actually paves you and your business forward in the right direction. Absolutely. And let's talk about imposter syndrome. If someone has an idea, but they are not sure whether it will work or not, what would you like to tell them?
Imposter syndrome is very real and it happens to everyone. And imposter syndrome to me is not a problem at all. I think imposter syndrome is actually you stepping outside your comfort zone. And imposter syndrome is trying to protect you by telling you, don't be too big, don't be, don't step too far outside your zone. But the truth is that if you don't celebrate your wins and if you don't stand in your power of what you're doing, no one else is going to do it for you. And so I also try to be very loud, or I have been very loud about looking this thing I've done, and I felt wildly uncomfortable while doing it, but I've done it anyways because I think no, I don't have the research to prove this, but in my experience, I feel that imposter syndrome heavily affects women. And so the women in my circle feel very uncomfortable. And I'm not going to say all women, women in my circle feel very uncomfortable sharing the successful, amazing things they've done because it sounds like they're showing off. But really, someone else in that situation would proudly stand and look at this hard thing that I've done. It doesn't mean that there wasn't a lot of challenges with it. So I feel like the best way to combat imposter syndrome is to be really loud about your achievements, right? You stay humble in person, but when you're posting stuff, you be very loud about your achievements.
That is true. Is it similar to fake it till you make it? Like, keep.
100%. That's what I say about everything. I fake it until I make it, even though I can post about this. We got this Women of Influence Award, which was so important and so like humbling. And like, I was very grateful to receive that. However, when I was going to that, the luncheon where they do this award, I was wildly uncomfortable. Even though I know that I had been selected from all these applications, I was still wildly uncomfortable. So no matter what, you're always going to feel uncomfortable in new situations. And I think I had to just fake it till I till I was able to just be like, okay, I'm comfortable in this space. And it never went away from me. If I show up in different places, I still feel the same way.
And you're very confident, Tina. I follow you on Instagram. I've watched your video and you're very confident. You have been an inspiration to me. Thank you so much for sharing about your journey so openly, Tina. What the listeners can take away from this conversation is that there's no set formula for product market fit. It's all about listening, learning, and adapting. And this is what entrepreneurship is all about. I mean, that's what you have shared as your journey in starting Bold Helmets. And we really appreciate that you created a product that resonated with us, understood our culture, that understood our needs. So thank you so much, Tina. And listeners, if you would like to connect with Tina, please feel free to check her website. It's www.boldhelmets.com. Her email address is info@boldhelmets.com. So feel free to touch base with her if you would like to ask any additional questions from your end on product market fit. And to our listeners, if today's conversation has helped you understand business a little more clearly, then we have achieved our goal. Now, this is a Business Blueprint podcast. This podcast is dedicated to my father, who passed away last year in June 2025. He was a community builder back in India and always helped people to build something meaningful. I'm just taking forward his legacy. This is Priti Ruparel. Thank you for listening to the Business Blueprint podcast. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you.